It's Brian Preston, the Money Guy.
And this question, Brian, is from Charlie. And Charlie said, I'm 28 and I do not believe Social Security will be around by the time I retire. Should people in my age group aim to have $2 million in retirement to compensate for this and inflation? Well, it's going to be really difficult to answer the question, is $2 million enough? We've done some content on that as well. For young people, right, for folks in Charlie's age range, what would you tell them to focus? Is Social Security something they should be occupying their mind with? And even someone at your age, right? With where you are in your financial journey, when it comes to how you're saving, how you're accumulating, how you're building, how do you allow outside forces like that to inform the way that you build your wealth?
This is, Charlie, a great question, by the way, and it's a timeless question. Back when I was in my 20s, what's funny is I was blogging before, and I don't think this stuff's up anymore if you went and tried to find it. But before there was blogging, I actually posted, because you could go create your own websites, and I made an angry Gen Xer. It was like Gen X Scream was my screen name or something like that.
All right, Nate, I need you to do some forensics. See if you can find Gen X.
I don't think it's out there anymore, but I wrote a very angry email, or post. Blogging I don't think existed back then, but I just posted it where all the things on why Social Security was a pyramid scheme and how it was unfair to young people and all these other things. And then I also went through a season where, I was an elected Board of Education member and then a county commissioner, and I got to rub elbows with other elected officials. Sure. And I would hit anybody who came from D.C., meaning if it was a House member or a Senate member who was going through the ranks of meeting local other elected officials, I'd hit them up. I'd be like, what are y'all doing about Social Security? Because Social Security is just a disaster for us young people because it's just, it doesn't work. It's not sustainable where you have the current workers, because Washington spends all the money that it's collected from current workers. If there's more, in the past it was more than was needed to pay retirees. Sure. You would think there was a investment. They were hiring somebody like Bo and Brian to see if we could invest that in the S&P 500 and grow it so there'd be plenty of money. No, the guys in Washington and the gals said, hey, let's go spend that money. If there's extra money there, why should we save that for the future? Why should we invest that? That's money that should just go in the general fund and we can just spend until our heart's content. Well,
you see, that's an IOU. It's as good as
money. It's basically credit card debt. Our government started running up credit card debt, and it was one of those things where I've been telling people for decades, I think Social Security, if you are, and I've put some data to it because now I'm getting older. I think if you're under 50, I wouldn't count on Social Security. I just wouldn't let that be part of your formula when you're doing the napkin retirement plan where you're looking at safe withdrawal rates and how much you need to save to build your pot of money up to for retirement. I would just let that be extra or plus. Now, look, if you're over 50, because this is the way politics work, is that they're not going to yank it completely away from old people because they're worried. They're scared. Politicians are scared to death of old people because they vote.
Sure.
The least voting group is young people. The most voting and active group are old people. So politicians, because it's all popularity contests, they're scared of old people, so they choose a point to where we're going to massage what we take from this, and let's take from those people that aren't paying attention. And look, I sound cynical when I say that.
No,
but it is something you need to pay attention to. If I'm under 50, I'm thinking I have to provide and replace this all by myself. If I'm over 50, I'm thinking, hey, maybe I don't get all of it. Maybe I get half of it. I wouldn't get too attached to it being part of the plan. Here's another thing. I'll just go ahead, and this isn't even asked by Charlie. If your income is greater than household income is greater than $200,000, your savings rate, you don't get to count the employer match. If you're under $200,000 of household income, you do get to count that employer match on your journey towards 20 to 25% savings and investments, because I think that's important. I'm trying to get you to build a mentality of what do I have to create for myself to build financial independence. And it's a little nuanced. You're on a journey, and there are obstacles and there's things that are coming in. Some of them benefit you and some of them actually work against you. You need to take into account all those different variables.
You know, Brian, it's interesting. We were hanging out with a guy the other day, and he was talking about, your brain has this desire to save calories, right? Like he was kind of walking through this thing around, and maybe this is my young person way of trying to conserve calories and not think too hard about it. But I always encourage young folks at the early end of their wealth building journey, focus on the things that you can control. You will not be able to control what happens with Social Security unless you decide to run for elected office and you would get some influence and you're able to direct policy. Outside of that, you can't control what happens with Social Security. Most of us, you won't be able to control what happens with the stock market. You can't control whether it's going to be up in 2022 or down in 2022. The things that you can control are the things you should focus on. And for young folks, it should be number one is your savings rate, because it's probably the single most valuable tool in your entire arsenal. How much am I saving? How much am I deploying for the future? And then you ought to think about, okay, how am I maximizing? What am I paying in taxes? Am I making tax advantaged decisions? And then you want to keep an eye on fees. You want to pay attention to how much of money is flying away from your dollars. Early on in your journey, and even later on in your journey, focus on the things that you can control and don't spin your wheels trying to figure out all the other things that are going to be, frankly, outside of your control anyways.
Yeah, I mean, that's great advice. I mean, because that probably should have let off with before the old man just kind of wandered in the woods telling you all my philosophical things. I think that is very actionable.
Love it, love it, love